Okay. So we left off with the battle of maintaining this clarity, maintaining the freedom from all the binge eating, and maintaining the freedom from the diet cult, fear-based mongering, and not having to apply it. But at the same time, you wanted to still worship the body, the ideal body.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, well, can I be in the religion and not follow any of the rules?
Yeah. Doesn't that sound great?
Well, the whole premise of the rules is what the religious is based around. So it's kind of like, well, the worshiping of that thin body and assuming that it provides you this, you know, it's like the assumption when you look at pictures is that you're going to earn something. You're going to earn your value. You're going to prove that you're valuable to people, and it's going to be visible. People are going to envy you. I mean, there's a lot of energy they put into the marketing of dieting, right?
Right.
You believe it. And so it's like saying, well, I don't want to have to change my eating, but I want to believe I can reach it. But how are you to reach this like ideal without manipulating anything?
Yeah. No, exactly.
So I left you with the challenge of, okay, fine, go back into the diet world was one challenge, and see how you do. How does it work out? The other challenge was I wanted you to go on a date with your husband to see what is a date like comparatively when you're on a diet, when you're off a diet, and what would it be like if there was no weight loss to be had? Right? Yeah. So how did that go this week?
So the date night I actually did with my daughter.
Fun.
My husband's been working extra late, and so I did it with her, and it was really good. It was really good, and here's why it was really good. Because not only could I have a great conversation with her, while we were there about food, and by the way, she laughs, she goes, I need to talk to that Robin. She's changing all the rules.
I'm just flipping around a little bit. I'm like prioritizing your mental health first.
That's right. But I think the best thing about it is I just enjoyed it, and didn't eat all of it and just took the rest home, and it was good. It's not as good as I remembered, though. Do you know, like when you give yourself a free, you go, I'm going to go to my favorite place. So mine's Mexican.
Mm-hmm.
So you go to your favorite place, have this delicious food, and you get full quicker than you think. And it's just not as good as I remembered it being. Because my taste buds are starting to change. The things I'm craving are different. Like today it was avocados.
Okay, I see what you're saying. For some reason I was thinking you were saying the experience wasn't as good.
No.
What you're saying is the actual food isn't as good as you thought it was before.
Exactly.
When there was this like, it's bad and I can't have it and I'm going to justify it and I earned it. What does that tell you about the power of that perception of I've earned it, it's justified, I'm not going to have it, I never have this?
It's overpowering.
It messes with your mouth too, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
The diet is the addiction. It is not the food.
Is that not amazing?
Well, there's science to back it. It's not just me. I'm not just saying shit I'm just not making shit up.
It's just disappointing because like, for instance, we just saw on the news, they were talking about the new diet drug coming out. And standing in this place, it's sad because you go, well, that's not going to fix the problem, though, really.
No, it's going to make someone a huge amount of money. And there's a ton of science. So there's the science of what's it called? There's the science of the disease model. That disease model is founded on the idea that we can create drugs. That's how that works. So the crazy thing is when people use the disease model type of science, they don't understand that we're looking at it from a very small, like, peephole.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have to find a drug for it. Or the alternative is complete abstinence, right? And that messes with your own survival mechanisms, right?
Yeah.
So the entire diet industry isn't made to solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's made to solve the consequence temporarily.
Right.
They don't even look at it. I mean, if you even look at the food fear stuff, let's just look at like removing all gluten. That is such a linear, singular, tiny, tiny perspective, right?
Yeah.
when it comes to weight and weight loss, when it comes to like celiacs and all these other issues, it's a very big deal, right? That's a totally different conversation. But for weight loss, or even just sugar for weight loss, all of that fear is to control and manipulate people, because the reality of it is, if they actually knew anything about addiction and pleasure with food, they wouldn't add fear and an all or nothing cognitive distortion to it, because that causes more damage than sugar alone.
Yeah. Well, and I honestly think when you were talking to me earlier, I was giving this some thought about the more you diet and the more you do, especially I think HCG, right? The more you do it, when you have the mindset that's the diet phenomenon, the worse it gets next time.
Oh God, yeah. It's dangerous. The HCG protocol is psychologically very dangerous if you're doing it to feel better about yourself.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
So like these new diet drugs coming out and things like that, you go, well, you know what? As you get older, it just makes it worse and worse and worse and worse and worse.
Oh, yeah.
And it's scary. That's why I'm like, I got to stop this now. Seriously. You know?
Well, and the other part of it is,
getting any younger.
Here's the other part to this that I think is really especially important that you're aware of, is how they market to you. Okay, the diet industry, the food powerhouses, the people that want to control what you eat, right? And they want followers, and they get off on the power of it. They put themselves on the front of their book, right? And they're like, follow my plan. That's very power hungry, right? They put a picture of the extreme ideal.
Yeah.
This woman who is ripped, thin, svelte, tiny waisted, very small amounts of fat, young, luxurious hair. They create this picture and say, this only takes you getting rid of junk food. No, for real. It's like, get rid of the crap food, and here's a body. So they create this skewed expectation and this weird belief that it's not that hard. So here's the perfect.
Like it's not that hard, and we're wrong because we can't. I'm wrong because I can do it.
Okay, but the problem is that you put them above you.
True, because they figured it out.
They must to be able to put a picture like that out and say, it's this easy. Just do it.
Exactly.
Just get rid of the gluten, and you're going to immediately, your insecurity is going to go away. Your low self-worth is going to go away. There are issues with your husband gone if you're thin and healthy. You're all of a sudden going to feel proud of who you are when you get rid of gluten.
Yeah.
Or whatever the diet meme is. It's, why are they using so much emotional fear and at the same time creating this promise of perfection and this promise that is so unrealistic? So think of the combination of creating an illusion of ease, right? They don't tell you that, oh, we're tapping into a survival area of the brain that when it feels deprived, your impulses to eat skyrocket whether you want to or not. Okay, they don't talk about that. Then they also don't talk about the fact that the picture they showed you, that girl has an obsessive compulsive disorder with exercise. And she's bulimic. And don't forget, there's genetic predisposition that might keep her from the sensitivity.
Yeah.
So they're creating this illusion like it's as easy as what we tell you and you can have the best case scenario. Now, when you believe it's true and you assume that they're right and the information must be pure and with good integrity, as a consequence, when it's hard on you, how do you feel about yourself? Because they depicted it as easy.
Feel horrible. You know, you feel like there's something wrong specifically with me.
You must have addiction. You must be addicted. Yeah. The other thing is, why can't your body get there? So there's this feeling that there's an inadequacy within you and there's an inadequacy with the body.
Yeah.
So now there's a new way of doing it. Oh my gosh, get rid of dairy. It's the dairy. Here's a picture of what you'll look like. And look, she's happier. Her marriage is better. This illusion of you'll be, there's pride, right? There's all this pride you'll feel and you'll be healthy and controlled and protected, right? And you have the symptom of the way they market. So think about what I said and then how do you feel is equal or opposite to what they're marketing? Because you believed it. You implemented it. It was much harder than they said, and it wasn't realistic physically, but yet you feel like you are weak and incapable, and the body is wrong and bad.
Well, and the sad thing is, if you do have results, it's for such a short period of time, because you eventually go back. Like, it's exactly what you said when we talked before, when you said the reason you might binge on cake is because you're thinking in your mind, I'm never going to have this again.
Never. And if you have a bite, you failed.
Yes.
And that comes back to, this food is bad. They don't use, there's no like realism in saying, hey, this isn't bad food. It's bad when you're over consuming it and if you're not hungry. In fact, if you actually enjoy the food, it can be very positive for your body because it sends the message of abundance. So it actually improves the metabolic with how much body fat you have.
Exactly. So for you, I mean, I know you've never been in that situation. So how could you possibly know what it is to weigh, 30, 40, 50, 100 pounds overweight? Do you get that?
Oh, I get it all the time. Well, I don't know. How do you think I know how to talk to you about this? Maybe is it because it's not a physical problem? Does how much fat you have on your body change your biology around how you perceive yourself? No, because we're living in the same standard. So what I went through is almost identical. The difference is I had the ideal, and it was the only thing that made me valuable. The only thing. So how do you think I treated my body? As if I was 500 pounds overweight because I had to maintain it. I had to defend it. So I was obsessive. Like it's actually far, far worse psychologically for someone who actually has attained the goal. And there's science to back this, social science to back. When someone attains an ideal and then loses it, psychologically they're far worse than the person who's never attained it. So you realize that it would take someone who's been through the extreme of ideology to help you out of it.
Yeah. Well, and for you, it sounds like, it's kind of like people that are anorexic, right? You are never thin enough.
Yeah, well, most of it is you have to defend your thinness for many people. I've hit the ideal, and there's a rising expectations and there's diminishing returns, right? So you're never gratified, right? So how do I know all of this? If you've watched 165 of my videos, how do I know any of this? Do you think they teach this in school?
Yeah, not the school I went to.
So do you think it matters whether I've been morbidly obese or not to know the psychology behind binge eating and insecurity and shame and body loathing? Because you realize, for me, 5 pounds of extra weight felt like 50. That's how psychologically skewed I was. But it's the same psychological skewing. Mine was just a lot tighter. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. It's just, I had one of my girlfriends watched one of your videos and she made that comment. And I was like,
that's just ignorance. Let her watch this video. I just want you to know you're ignorant, and that's okay.
Yeah. It's all right. I love you anyway.
Exactly. That's fine. You obviously don't get paid to help people with this.
Exactly.
That thought is a sign that you would cause damage to people, because you think that when you're thin, you think you're better than everybody. Yeah. That's not true. That's not how it works.
Exactly.
But anyhow, so I want to know, did you go back to dieting at all?
It's funny. I did the day. I couldn't do it after a day. It freaked me out.
Because it's so dangerous.
It was so horrible. I mean, you seriously, all of a sudden, I woke up in the middle of the night and you're like craving everything. Whereas the day before, you weren't even thinking of it. All I was craving was everything. And because I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do that. Today we're going to have a salad and we're going to do this. And so instantly, everything in my pantry looked really good. Even the stuff I hate looked really good.
Yeah, I know. You're dealing with what they would call, it's psychological evolution, right? So we can look at the human species and say we've been on this earth for like a long time, 20,000+ years, when we can trace it back. That over the time that we've been on this planet, we have evolved to learn how to survive. And through trial and error. And through trial and error, the human brain is acclimated to, what do we need to survive? You need water, you need food, you need sex, you need more than likely a support group. a group of people. You're going to survive if you live in a community versus on your own or with just one other person. So the need to have security around a social group is wired into our brains. The need to have food is wired. And what they found is that today we don't have those threats at all. But what we do have is shame. We have this ideology, controlling systems, and we still have these psychological evolutionary impulses to have sex, to hoard, to do all these things that don't necessarily rationally make sense where we live.
Right.
But you're still that mammal that is wired when you have shame to find a resolution that would remove it. And finding social acceptance is one. That's the impulse to lose weight because you want to be accepted. Finding food is one of the main ones that science has found. That when you have shame specifically to a social environment, you're going to go and look for food that is wired to your survival mechanisms. And so when I said to you, okay, we're not going to have shame of food, shame of your body. We're going to remove you from that brainwashing to give you a new experience. What you found without first off, the need to be thin to be valued, that it completely reduced the pressure to be perfect with your food. And it took away all of that fear and control of food. And what happened to your impulses to hoard?
Yeah, they're gone.
They're instantly gone. It doesn't take a few days.
No, it's like you flip a switch, because suddenly you realize there's no need.
Nope, and you are now aware that those impulses are only there when there's deprivation and shame and this pressure to be thin to be socially accepted. Because it's that threat of being persecuted, or the threat of being judged, or the threat of being, left is intense when you follow that belief system. And that puts pressure on your food, and you have to be perfect with your food, and you are messing with the survival area of the brain. And then you are told that the food is what the problem is by the diet industry that wants your money so that you follow their food system.
Right. Yeah, makes perfect sense. Well, and one of the things that you had said was you were talking about success rate, and I know from, reading this, that, and the other, that if you go 5 years out from any diet, they all fail. Weight Watchers, it doesn't matter. 5 years out, people are unable to stick with that because of exactly what you just said.
Even just if someone makes it 5 years, that's like, wow, they had to have changed their mind. They had to have changed. There's something changed in their perception about their body. There's lenience they're giving themselves, because you can't isolate yourself in a tiny box without food. So the actual success rate is 3%. And not just 3%. And not just that, but the 97% are getting fatter.
Yeah.
And they're binging more, and there's more inadequacy, and there's more insecurity, and there's all sorts of stuff going on. And you know what? I have no doubt in my mind that the failure rate of diets is directly linked to the media that they're portraying and the stringency of their diet.
Yeah. Now, have you tracked at all with your people that you've worked with what kind of success rate you've had in them being able to maintain and not get sucked back in?
Maintain what?
This paradigm shift. Do you know
what I mean? Maintain freedom from dieting?
Yes.
I honestly have no idea. I have no idea.
And the reason I asked that is one of the things that I was in doing the different worksheets that we had put together was I realized that I had divided things out into issues with food, but social acceptance was a huge issue that I had that I didn't know I had. And that includes with my husband. And there's something to be said for like that's an area that could suck me back into this, because when you're not, quote unquote, doing the traditional things that you should be doing to lose weight, you're not making an effort, and so you're a sloth. And there seems to be this kind of this thought process, at least that I'm feeling in my communities, that, if you tell people, I'm just not going to diet anymore, I'm not doing this anymore, I'm going to listen to my body, they look at you like, oh, well, you just want to eat anything you freaking want to.
Why do you care what anybody else thinks? Just hold on. Why does their opinion matter?
Why wouldn't their opinion matter?
Well, because if you really had a strong sense of confidence in yourself, you wouldn't need their opinion because you're the only one that knows what's best for you.
True.
So why are you so needy for them to approve of you? And why are you hanging out with people who are so critical and controlling?
One of them is my husband.
Well, honestly, if you, does he understand the consequences of you trying to get his approval?
No.
Well, you might want to tell him that. Have you ever thought, I'm afraid that if I'm fat that you won't love me? And I have an eating disorder.
Yeah.
Part of your issue, I can't fix for you. So when you say, Robin, what's your success rate? Well, I don't know. You tell me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my job to make you successful. That's actually a really shitty thing to ask of someone. It is. It truly is. Because you know what? Your success is yours. I'm not going to take credit for it. I don't know. Because it's none of my business what you and your husband have coordinated. And I can't fix your husband. So to ask me if I'm going to be successful for you is actually you putting blame on someone else for you not taking responsibility. And if you really want to take responsibility, then you're going to be successful. But if you want to blame or if you want to say, well, is it going to work? I don't know. You make that decision. If you want it to work, you know what's going to happen? It's going to work.
Absolutely.
If you don't want to go, what you're recognizing right now is the areas that you have avoided, which is why you have an eating disorder. I'm going to have to deal with my insecurity with the one person that I'm dedicating my life with. I'm insecure with this person. You're going to have to deal with that if you want to have success. Because you know what you're saying is if I don't deal with that, I'm going to have to find some way to manage it.
Right.
Well, yeah, well, that's for sure. How am I supposed to help you through that?
You're not.
I know, right? So you have to do that work. It's not my job. So my question is, what's going to be your success rate? Because what is it so far? What's your success rate so far?
0.
Zero success rate because you're using the diet meme and you're afraid of people's rejection. So in order for you to have a 100% success rate or even a 5% success rate, you're going to have to prove it to yourself. I'm not going to prove it to you. I have nothing to prove to you or anybody else that's watching. This isn't about me. Mm-hmm. This isn't about my program because I don't really have a program. Can you tell? This is your program and it's your job. And you're the one who's 0%, and you're the one who's the coolest part about this, the way that we're working together, is you're the one that gets the pat on the back. This isn't the Robin Woodall, psychic evolution. That's not what this is. This is your attempt at retrieving your emotional well-being and autonomy. I cannot do it for you, and I won't. But I will support you and I will guide you and I'm telling you the way out. You just have to trust it and do it.
Right. Which part of doing that is going through, the bumps and making the false mistakes and trying to then see the forest for the trees. That kind of thing. Of course.
And that is like, why? It's not just, we're going to do this for 10 sessions. You're going to be perfect. Everything is going to be completely organized. And then by the end, we're going to have a chart that shows your success rate. That's a repeating of some form of failure, right? Don't you agree? Yeah. Sounds like what you've done in the past. Don't attach that to me. That's not my fault if you do it this way.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to do is you're going to have a conversation with your husband. If you want to remove the vulnerability between him and your fear of his judgment and leaving you because you're afraid that he'll think you're a sloth, sounds like you need to develop a sense of confidence and competence to where if he is an asshole, that's his prerogative, not yours. And it's not your job to make him feel good about this marriage. He should feel good about it from his own mind, and it shouldn't require that you become his slave. Because body image and forcing someone to be thin is a form of slavery and mind control.
See that?
Say that again?
So I could see that, like that there's conditions that are...
Yeah, and you have to do what they say, and they will threaten you if you don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you're going to have to feel those vulnerabilities. You're going to be exposed to that vulnerability if you truly take your worth and how you feel about yourself and develop it.
Yeah.
You're going to come to realize that you do not want to be around people who don't really love you. They only love the picture of you. And that's usually, if that's the case, it's because they're afraid of what other people think. So you are compensating for his fear of what other people think.
Say that in a different way.
Well, basically, if he's putting pressure on you to be thin, it's because he's afraid of what people think.
Okay.
Like, oh, look at him. His wife is fat. He probably judges other people who have wives that aren't perfectly thin. So if you aren't thin and you aren't working on it, then he probably feels that he's being judged. So he's projecting his judgment of other people onto you as if it's your job to keep him safe from being judged.
That was a mouthful. Oh my God.
This is recording. You can play it back.
Thank God. Well, I mean, it's brilliant because I was telling you before we started recording that there was a video I watched when you were explaining to the woman that she could not change her husband. And you were talking about her being responsible for how she feels. Sounds like a very similar conversation you're having with me. But here I thought it was all about food, and it's really not. It's more than that. It's about my self-worth, and that's what you were trying to explain to her, that she can be responsible for her self-worth, but she can't be responsible for how her husband interacts with her, what her husband thinks, what other people in her life think. She's got to be secure in herself.
Of course. And she's got to be willing to just be herself and expose herself to the vulnerability that he might not like it. Yeah. But even so, he still didn't like it. If he actually liked you and he felt that you were valuable, he would be concerned that the way he treats you would run you off.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
So, okay. If you remove him from the picture and you remove your friends that sound a little controlling too, and you get rid of these people in your life that are very opinionated, okay, and controlling, and it really came down to you and how you wanted to feel about yourself, what would you want to do?
I want to live the way that I'm living right now. I mean, I want to, if my body gets smaller, so be it. But it's because it's fixing something. It's not because I'm dieting. You know what I mean? Like when I don't worry about other people and my family and whatnot, then I just feel so much freedom. And I don't want to lose that, because for the first time in my life, I'm not worried about where the next meal's coming from. I'm not worried about if there's cake in the other room, if I'm going to get to have any. Do you know what I mean? Like I'm not worried.
Yeah, and the shame of it, right?
Exactly.
Oh, I'm a failure, and that makes you vulnerable to their rejection even worse in your head.
And I also love the fact that as people around me are talking about, oh, I worked out today 30 minutes, oh, I did weights, and I'm thinking to myself, I took the dogs for a walk, and I'm okay with that, and it's fine. And whether or not I did is irrelevant, because it doesn't make me any better or any worse. Mm-hmm. I want to stay here. Like I don't want to lose this freedom.
Okay, that feeling you have right now about that, that is the most powerful motivation you have to stay there. The key is to keep it, to be around the chaos and around the judgment and around people are like, if you don't want to work on your weight, you're lazy, right? You have no aspirations, right? Like that's what we're supposed to be aspiring to. What if you want to focus on something else that's more important to you? You're going to have to hear all that and it not penetrate. and just recognize they're crazy. They are in the cult. When I left the same cult you did, I also left a few other cults that I was in. One of them was religion. And my parents and my family history and all of this pressure to be this specific religion, the entire family's spiritual well-being involved me, right? And I left that religion and married someone that wasn't in it, right? I had to accept being judged, scoffed, mocked, scorned, put down, disappointed. That was a huge part of my mental illness, by the way.
Wow.
Well, obviously you get it.
Yeah, I do.
You're living in that fear and that tininess and that inadequacy. Like everybody knows more than you. When in reality, those assholes you're listening to, they don't know shit. Yeah. How do they, if they knew anything about authenticity, they wouldn't be putting this much criticism on people and you. Yeah. So it required for me, when I actually chose not to commit suicide and move forward, that I be who I am regardless of the judgments that are being thrown at me. No matter how many stones are being thrown at me, I will be true and authentic and real about who I am, because that's the truth of who I am, and I don't ever again want to defend myself from other people's issues who want to control me, who think that I have to be a certain way for me to be valuable. That was the source of my insanity. And I gave myself the grace and the leniency to develop who I wanted to be the way that I should have been developed if I was given the leniency to be who I wanted. Yeah. And you're kind of there too. And that's what I think you're becoming aware of. It's like, well, what about all these people that you care about? Yeah. And chances are they care about you too. They just don't know how to do it without conditions. How do you care for yourself unconditionally so that their conditions don't matter to you? It becomes their issue.
There would be a lot of freedom in having that.
There would be freedom and exposure for you to realize the truth. Like, you know what? If they really love me, they won't make a stink about this. Because if they really, really love me, they would want me to be happy. You know, when you love someone unconditionally, what do you want for them in their life? Separate from you.
You just want them to be happy.
That's the truth. You want them to feel good about their lives, to feel good about themselves. Whatever brings them joy, you want them to access that. Even if it's not something that you would want, if they truly feel joy from it, wouldn't you want them to have it?
Oh, yeah. No matter what that is, yeah. No,
yeah.
I agree.
Yes. Unconditional love that's independent. They can be who they want and you love them anyways, even if they're crazy. Right? It's almost like I'm asking you to take a maternal role for yourself. Yeah. I'm asking you to honor your joy in what's true about that reward for you that is inside of your spirit. You are to honor what is motivating to you. And if it's not motivating to you and the motivation is because you want approval from someone else, that's not internal. You're not really getting anything out of it except for security from them, right? That's extrinsic or external. Mm-hmm. This is actually very important in terms of understanding motivation. Like what is intrinsic is innately and inherently rewarding. So when you say to me, I don't want to leave this freedom that we have from the diet cult. I want to stay away from it because it's so incredible. That's inherent in this action, isn't it? It's not like you're earning it. It's immediate as you leave the pressure of the diet culture, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
That is inherent inside of you. Okay? Let's just say you go back to dieting. So, okay, I want to diet because I want a thin body because I believe that body will make me feel good about myself. That's external. That's still not intrinsic. Intrinsic means the dieting, you like it. Like you actually love dieting and you would do it whether you lose weight or not. Right?
Nobody, yeah.
Well,
for me,
some people do. Some people do. And they don't do it for weight. They do it because if I eat that, I feel like crap. That's an intrinsic feeling. It's like I don't eat till I'm full, not because I'm dieting. It's because I don't like to feel like crap. So it is inherently rewarding for me to listen to hunger. Right? That's not a diet. I don't need a reward. I don't need something out here. I don't need approval. I don't need someone to like be like, oh my God, you're amazing. None of that. So I'm going to show you the grade of this. So intrinsic is inherent. It's immediate. It's something that's rewarding and you don't need some validation for it. Right? An example of this would be like studying. So right now I'm preparing to start writing. And most people who write know that it takes an incredible amount of research. This is one of about 40 scientific studies that I'm studying right now. I love it. This to me, you should see the notes that I have on this. This is so powerful. I absolutely am thoroughly enjoying what I'm doing as I'm reading this information. This is totally intrinsic for me. Okay? So as I'm doing this, I'm doing it because I don't need a reward. I don't need tons of money when this book is published. I don't need anybody to care about it because I'm being so rewarded right now just in this knowledge and confirmation I'm getting from the science. Okay, the next one would be extrinsic, but it's still pretty close to intrinsic. I'm going to write a book because I want to help other people with this problem. So I may not necessarily want to spend hours every day researching and studying and trying to cross-reference and trying to educate myself on the social sciences and evolutionary psychology, but I'm doing it because I want to write a quality book that might help other people. That's extrinsic. Do you see the difference? But it's still very close to intrinsic because the effort I'm putting into it is because I truly feel there's value in expressing this information. Yeah. Okay. Another form of extrinsic would be, I'm going to write this book because I want to make money. That's extrinsic. Right. That's a little further out. In fact, that's going to change the content of my writing, don't you think? I'm going to use a lot more fear-based propaganda. I'm probably going to talk about how sugar is addictive, all that, so I can make more money and power. The other form of extrinsic would be, I'm going to do this because I want my parents to be proud of me. I want to show that I've published a book and I want to be able to put that on a business card so I can prove that I'm smart to people. Do you see how that's extrinsic? So I do all this work, but it's not necessarily for me. It's for other people's approval. So as I'm doing all of this work, if I'm doing it for that external reason, how do you think it feels to me to have to read all this?
Like a chore.
Yeah, like I need to have some type of reward.
Yeah.
You got it.
Yeah.
So, and there's a form of, the more external the motive is, like in terms of reward, the further away it is from inside of your desires, the more deprived of time you're going to feel. The more deprived of my free time I'm going to feel. The more pissy I'm going to be that I'm going to have to do this and hope to God my parents appreciate it. And then if they just are like, wow, we're proud of you, and they don't give me what I want, I'm going to be mad at them, right? There's a lot of emotion going into that.
Because you expected them to be like,
that's why I did it.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
That's why I did it. And so when we're talking about you and this, like, ideal of the perfect body of health, right? Who are you doing it for? And can you see? No, can you see now why you have so much resentment and so much hoarding and how much like food has become important to you? Yeah. Because you actually aren't doing it for yourself. All of the way, your way of eating has never been about what's about you. What's internally important to you. The other thing to understand too is the further away the goal is, meaning the more extrinsic it becomes, especially when it becomes about, I want social acceptance, I want family acceptance. When it becomes super external like that with people you rely on, the leniency goes away because your motive, right? The context of why you're doing it it needs to happen. There's a neediness behind it emotionally that removes the grace. Okay. So the more extrinsic And the more approval you need, the more perfectionistic you are about the means to get it. If it was intrinsic, right? If you are changing the way you eat because it's really rewarding for you and you love it, what happens to strictness and lenience?
Relax.
Yeah, there's a lot of lenience because it's constantly within yourself, right? So with you and I working together, who's guiding this?
Technically me.
You
I
are.
still don't see it that way, but no, I see what you're saying though. Absolutely.
You are, because I'm out here saying, look, you and you're good with me. You can mess up. You can go back in. You can come back out. I want you to have the freedom and the grace to learn what feels good for you. And sometimes you're going to get sucked back in because you think that's what you need. And then you'll notice you binge and there's all this other stuff that goes with it. And then you'll come back out and go, oh my God, why did I do that? You know, and I'm here to say, you needed to figure that out. That's not a problem. All I am is a source of connection for you that is secure. Because you're not getting it from anybody else.
No.
That's all I'm doing. So what's my success rate of that? 100%.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
So my suggestion for you is to open yourself up to the vulnerability of people being assholes to you and let them expose it. And just know in your heart that you're doing the right thing. It's the right thing for your well-being and your mind. Yeah. They have no idea what's right for you. And for them to say that they do is really narcissistic.
I think that much like in religion or anything else, I think that their heart is in the right place. But it's also that they're buying into the same model, right?
Of course. Their heart is in all they know they're aware of.
Yeah.
And as you become more aware, people are going to think you're crazy.
Yeah.
And as you realize that they're crazy, you won't care that they think you're crazy. You'll be like, actually, I'm so much happier. I feel so much healthier. I feel psychologically like I've been given another chance to live. So I'd rather that than to be insane and obsessed about the way I look.
Yeah.
You know? And I think for you, this is normal, by the way, what you're feeling. This kind of like, okay, I have all this freedom and I don't want to give it up, but I have to be thin for my family. It's like, well, you can't have both, because honestly, to do what they want you to in your mind, it's going to require that you have an eating disorder. Yeah. And it is a form of anorexia, is what you have. The binge component is very, very expected with this form of anorexic dieting. When you remove large quantities of food, you isolate yourself from abundance. You take the abundance we live in. What percentage of it can you actually eat under that system? 10%?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, so anorexic. That's anorexic, honey.
Well, it's funny because you come up for air and you think, okay, well, I'm just going to breathe for a little bit and then I can go do it again, you know.
And you don't really want to, and you're doing it for other people to like you, and you're hoping for their approval. This is just very juvenile. You're in a juvenile stage, and so is everybody around you. It's like being in junior high. I would have to say, in my personal opinion, most everybody's in junior high in this country. Most adults haven't left that pecking order way of thinking.
Yeah.
You know, and it takes someone to grow up to be able to go, you know what, I don't even care if you don't like me because I'm not thin. That takes evolution, right? Yeah. To be able to say, I'm a good person, I have good integrity, I'm nice to people, I I've been where you're at and I'm choosing not to go there by choice. It's like when people say, my dad used to be crazy right-wing Republican. And if I'm talking to Republicans, I'm like, yeah, my dad totally left it. He's liberal. He's like crazy on the far left now. And they're like, what? How is that even possible?
Yeah.
What do you think that's a sign of?
Well, they obviously...
There's a little bit of ego there, isn't there?
Just
like there's only one way?
Yeah.
It's like, where's the middle? Why can't we be in the middle? And I've said that to my dad too. I'm like, can't we just kind of learn and not repeat history, one side, other side? It's kind of the same thing. It's like once you kind of grow up and develop a sense of worth that is so internal, all that juvenile bullshit you just don't even care about. You're like, okay. When you're judged and people are there, you're just like, and they're immature. And you don't judge it because you've been there and you have compassion, but you're like, these people just seriously don't value themselves like they should. You're growing up emotionally. That's what's happening right now. And the people you're hanging out with might not grow up with you, and you're going to have to be able to love them anyways. Yeah. And to let them be that way. And you don't need to defend yourself. And you don't need to prove anything other than I'm so much happier. And if they love you, they'll go, well, that's honestly, that's all that matters.
Yeah. And they might not.
Well, if they don't, I don't know if they really like you.
Yeah. No, that's true.
It is true.
Yeah.
So I'm going to turn this video off.
Okay.
Thanks for letting me share this.